She arrived with nothing, just a pair of torn silk shoes and a letter she had already read too many times. The man who was supposed to marry her never showed. He said she looked too young, too foreign, too easy to forget. So the train left, and she was still standing there, alone. Then a man stepped out of the shade, didn't ask her name, didn't ask where she came from. His eyes dropped to her bare feet, and he said, "Is that all you brought?" She nodded. He looked at her for a long moment, then said something no one had ever said to her before. "Then you've brought everything." She didn't know it yet, but that was the moment her life stopped falling apart and started becoming something else, something dangerous, something earned, something that would make men come for them with rifles and burn everything to the ground. But this time she wouldn't run. The town was called Dry Hollow, not on most maps, just a scatter of warped buildings pressed against the edge of Colorado territory, where the wind never really stopped and the dust never truly settled. She had crossed an ocean to get there, not by choice. Her name was Mei Lin, 20, maybe. No one had asked. No one had checked. She came from a railroad camp outside Sacramento, a place built from canvas, smoke, and men who didn't look at you unless they had to. A broker arranged the match, a photograph sent, a promise written, a life decided and erased in a single letter. The paper was still in her hand when the stranger spoke to her. By the time she followed him, it was gone, carried off by the wind like it had never mattered. His name was Caleb Rourke. He didn't offer it right away. Men like him didn't give things for free, not words, not trust, not even kindness. He owned land north of Dry Hollow, not much by some standards, about 6,000 acres of stubborn earth cut by a narrow creek that refused to dry even in bad seasons. That creek was the only reason the land still lived, and the only reason men would eventually come for it. The ride out was long. No conversation, no comfort. Just heat, dust, and the steady rhythm of a horse that didn't spook easy. Mei Lin didn't touch him, didn't speak, just held on to the back of the saddle like it was the only solid thing left in her life. She watched his shoulders instead, broad, still, unwilling to turn back. A man who had already decided something and wasn't going to explain it. The homestead sat low in a shallow basin, not a ranch built for pride, built for survival. A timber cabin reinforced with stone, a barn older than it looked. Walls patched together over time, not designed, just kept alive. It wasn't beautiful, but it was standing. Inside, the air was cooler, quiet, everything in its place. No decorations, no wasted space, no sign that anyone expected company. He set a tin cup on the table, filled it from a pump basin, pushed it toward her. "Drink." She did, both hands around the cup, like she was holding on to something that could disappear. He leaned against the wall, watching, not staring, measuring. "You can stay," he said. No warmth in it, no softness, just fact. "There's work." Fence line needs fixing. Garden's near dead. Roof leaks when it storms. Not charity. Terms. She understood that better than most. Maylin? Her voice barely held, but it didn't break. He nodded once. That was enough. Outside, the wind moved through the dry grass, the kind of sound that never really stops. Inside, something had begun. Not comfort, not safety, not yet, but something closer to staying. The next morning he was already outside before the light had fully settled. Not waiting, not watching, just working. The sound of metal on wood carried through the still air, steady, deliberate, like it had nowhere else to be. Maylin woke to that rhythm. Not an alarm, not a voice, just proof that the world here didn't pause for anyone. She folded the blanket he had left for her, set it exactly where it had been, then stepped outside. The land looked different in the morning, less endless, more exposed. Every flaw visible. Dry patches in the soil, fence posts leaning just enough to matter. A garden that had tried and failed to survive. Caleb didn't greet her, didn't slow down. He drove another nail into the split beam, then moved on like the job had already claimed him. He wasn't ignoring her. He just wasn't making space for anything unnecessary. She understood that, so she didn't ask what to do. She chose. The garden. The soil was stubborn, packed hard from heat, cracked where it should have held moisture. She knelt anyway, hands pressing into the dirt, testing it, learning it. She worked slowly, pulling dead roots, breaking the surface, clearing what couldn't be saved. It wasn't hope, it was habit. From the corner of the yard, Caleb watched once, just once, then went back to work. By midday, the heat settled in again, thick, unforgiving. A shadow crossed the garden. A bucket set down beside her, full, cold. She looked up. He was already walking away. Didn't say anything. Didn't need to. That was the first thing he gave her. Not kindness, access. She used it carefully, watered only what might live, ignored what wouldn't. That night they ate in silence. Beans, hard bread, coffee that tasted like burnt earth. He sat across from her, not studying her, not avoiding her, just present. "You've worked land before," he said. Not a question. She nodded. "My father, before the railroad took it." He didn't ask more, didn't offer sympathy, but something in his posture shifted, barely. He understood loss, just not the kind you talked about. The days settled into a pattern, not comfortable, not easy, but consistent. He repaired, she restored. He rode the outer fences, checking for breaks, tracks, anything that didn't belong. She stayed closer. Garden, water, washing clothes at the creek, learning the current, the way the stones shifted underfoot. At night, small changes. A shirt left on the chair, returned with the tear mended, stitching so fine it looked like it had never been broken. a loose hinge on the door, fixed before morning. No thanks, no mention, just continuity. Trust built the only way that lasts without being spoken. One evening the wind dropped completely. An unnatural stillness settled over the basin. Mei Lin stood at the edge of the garden, hands in the soil, and felt it before she saw anything. Something off. Across the ridgeline, far but not far enough, 3 figures appeared. Riders. They weren't drifting, weren't searching. They were coming straight toward the land. Caleb saw them at the same moment. The change in him was immediate, subtle, but absolute. The hammer in his hand lowered. His shoulders tightened. Every line of his body turned toward them. Not surprise, recognition. He didn't look at her, didn't explain. Inside. Just one word, flat, cold, final. She moved, no hesitation. Behind her, the sound of the door shutting, the bolt sliding into place. And outside, the slow approach of men who already believed this land belonged to them. The riders didn't rush. They didn't need to. From the narrow slit between the boards, Mei Lin watched them descend into the basin. Slow, measured, certain. Men who weren't guessing. Men who had already decided how this would end. Caleb stood to the side of the window, not exposing himself, still as stone. "How many?" she whispered. "3," he said. "Enough." The horses stopped short of the yard, not too close, not careless. One of the men dismounted, older, heavy coat despite the heat, the kind of man who carried authority like it had weight. He took a few steps forward, stopped, smiled, just enough to be seen. Rourke. His voice carried clean across the dry air. Caleb didn't answer. Silence stretched, not empty, measured. "You received the notice," the man continued, 3 days ago. Mei Lin glanced at Caleb. Nothing in his face moved. "Noticed it," he replied, flat. The man chuckled softly, no humor in it. "Then you understand. This land's been resurveyed. A spur line's coming through." He gestured loosely toward the valley, as if it already belonged to him. Water source makes it valuable. Mei Lin's gaze flicked toward the creek line outside, then back to Caleb. Still nothing. "The compensation was generous," the man went on. "You had your chance to take it." "And now?" Caleb asked. The man's smile thinned. "Now we stop asking." Dust shifted between them, carried by a wind that hadn't returned. Mei Lin felt it then, clear, sharp, undeniable. This wasn't a negotiation. Caleb stepped closer to the door, not opening it, just claiming the space behind it. "The survey's wrong," he said. The man shrugged. "Then prove it." "You've got until the end of the week." A beat. And Rourke, his eyes shifted just slightly past the door, toward where she stood. "You're not the only one on this land anymore." The meaning landed heavy, deliberate. Mei Lin didn't step back, didn't hide. She let him see her shadow. The man smiled again, satisfied. "Wouldn't want anything unfortunate to happen to your guest." He turned, mounted. No rush, no fear. The three riders pulled away the same way they came, slow, controlled, certain, leaving behind nothing but dust and a promise. Inside, the air changed. Caleb moved first, fast now, precise. He crossed to a wooden chest in the corner, unlocked it, pulled out a rolled canvas, spread it across the table. A map, hand-drawn, layered with markings, corrections, lines drawn twice, once honest, once not. Mei Lin stepped closer, careful. He pointed. "This line," he said. "Real boundary." His finger shifted lower. "And this is what they filed." The difference was small, barely noticeable at a glance, but it moved the creek from his land to theirs. Mei Lin understood immediately. Water wasn't property here. It was survival. "They changed it," she said. "They paid someone to change it." Caleb nodded once, then reached back into the chest, pulled out something smaller, worn, leather-bound. He placed it beside the map. "A ledger," he said. She opened it carefully. Numbers, names, dates, payments that didn't belong, signatures that shouldn't exist. Proof. Real. Dangerous. "They don't just want the land," she said. Caleb shook his head. "They want this." The room felt smaller suddenly, not because of the walls, but because of what was inside them. Mei Lin looked at him, really looked this time. "You kept it," she said. "Long enough," he answered. A beat, then, "You should leave." The words came out quieter, heavier. "Take the horse," he continued. "Ride back before dark." He didn't look at her when he said it. Not dismissal, protection. Mei Lin didn't answer right away. Her gaze moved across the room, the table, the tools, the place she had started to understand, then back to him. "And go where?" He finally looked up. Their eyes met. For the first time, not as strangers, not as arrangement, as two people standing on the same edge. The silence stretched, and this time neither of them stepped away. The night didn't bring rest. It brought waiting. No wind, no insects, no movement beyond the walls. Just the kind of silence that feels watched. Caleb didn't sleep. He sat at the table, the ledger closed in front of him, a rifle laid within reach. Mei Lin lay near the hearth, eyes open, listening to his breathing, counting it. Still there, still steady. By the time the first light came, he was already standing. The shot came before the sun cleared the ridge. A crack, sharp, violent, splintering the wood beside the window. Mei Lin flinched back instinctively, but Caleb was already moving. Down! Not loud, not panicked, certain. She dropped behind the heavy table as another shot tore through the door. The world collapsed into noise. Gunfire, shouting, wood breaking under impact, smoke, dust, the smell of powder filling the air. They hadn't come to talk. Caleb fired once, clean, controlled, then moved, never staying in one place, never exposing more than he had to. He knew this. He had expected this. Mei Lin pressed herself low, hands clenched tight. But she didn't freeze. She listened, watched, learned. Another shot, closer. Caleb reached for cartridges and came up short. A single beat. Enough. She moved, crawled across the floor, keeping low, toward the spare rifle, toward the box beside it. Her hands shook, but they didn't stop. She dragged it back to him, pushed it within reach. He glanced down, just for a second. Surprise, then understanding. A sharp nod. That was all. The rhythm changed. Not his fight anymore. Theirs. Outside, boots on dirt, voices getting closer. They're pushing in, Caleb muttered. The door shuddered. Once. Again. A heavy impact, something used as a ram. Back, he said. Stay low. She moved toward the hearth. Stone. Cover. The third strike came, and the door broke. Light flooded in, blinding, violent. Two men surged through the opening, shadows against the morning. Caleb fired. One dropped instantly. The second stumbled forward, gun raised. At the same moment, a shape appeared in the shattered window, rifle aimed at her. Time slowed. She saw the barrel, the stillness before the shot, and then Caleb moved. Fast, without hesitation. He left the man in front of him, turned, and drove into her, forcing her down against the stone. The shot cracked. Pain ripped through him, a dull, tearing impact high in his arm. But he didn't stop. His rifle came up, fired from the ground. The man at the window disappeared. The second attacker inside, too slow. Another shot. Silence. No more movement. No more voices. Just breathing. Maylin pushed herself up, hands searching, finding him. Blood. Dark. Spreading fast through his sleeve. "You're hit." "I know." His voice was tight, controlled, but thinner now. He slid back against the wall, breathing harder. Outside, nothing. No advance, no retreat. They were waiting. Inside, she tore a strip from her dress, hands steadier now, focused. She cut the sleeve open. The wound was deep, clean through, but angry, bleeding hard. She worked quickly, washed it, pressed cloth tight, wrapped it firm. He watched her, not the wound, her, the way she moved, the way she didn't hesitate. No fear left in her hands, only purpose. "It'll hold," she said quietly. He nodded, not because he believed it, but because she did. The air shifted. A smell. Faint at first, then stronger. Smoke. Maylin looked up. Gray threads curling down from the ceiling. Caleb turned his head slightly, eyes narrowing. Outside, a flicker of movement. Then, fire. Something hit the roof, a low, heavy whoomph as dry material caught. Then another. The crackle spread fast. Hungry. "They're not coming in," she said. "No," Caleb replied. "They're burning us out." Heat built almost instantly. The ceiling darkened. Smoke thickened. Breathing became harder. The walls, once shelter, now a trap. Mei Lin looked at him. He was already thinking, already calculating. "The barn," he said. She knew the distance. Too far, too open. "They'll be watching," she said. A beat. He nodded. Then, "I go first." "No," he cut her off. "I draw them." A breath. "You run when they shift." His eyes locked on hers. "Don't stop." The roof groaned overhead, flames taking hold. Time was gone. He pushed himself up, favoring the injured arm, but steady, moved to what was left of the doorway, paused, just for a second, not looking back. Then he stepped into the firelight and ran. The moment he broke into the open, the rifles answered. Shots cracked from the ridge. Dust kicked up around his boots. Caleb didn't slow, didn't look back. He ran wide, drawing them, making himself the only target that mattered. Just like he said he would. Inside, the heat surged. Smoke thickened, burning the back of Mei Lin's throat. She counted. 1, 2, 3. Another volley outside. 4, 5. She ran. Bare feet striking hard earth, breath tearing through her chest. The world narrowed, to distance, to movement, to the shape of the barn ahead. A bullet snapped past her ear. She didn't flinch, didn't slow. Behind her, the house roared, wood collapsing, fire taking everything. She didn't look back. Ahead, Caleb reached the barn, turned, fired. One shot, then another, covering her, not missing, not letting her fall. She crossed the last stretch, threw herself through the open door, hit the ground hard, air gone from her lungs. A second later, he was there. The door slammed shut, bar dropped into place. Darkness swallowed them. Only breath, only silence, only the distant crackle of fire outside. They were alive, for now. Hours passed, or maybe less. Time didn't hold shape anymore. The heat faded slowly, smoke thinned. Eventually, quiet settled over the land again. Not the same quiet, a hollow one. Dawn came pale and unforgiving. Through the gaps in the barn walls, light cut in narrow lines. Caleb pushed the door open, carefully. No movement, no riders, no voices. They were gone. Mei Lin stepped out behind him and saw it. What was left? The house gone, reduced to blackened beams and a single standing chimney. Ash drifted where a life had been. Tools, table, bed. Everything erased. The chest, the map, the ledger. Gone with it. Proof lost. Caleb stood still, didn't speak, didn't move. Just looked. At the ground he had built, at the work of years turned into nothing. Mei Lin watched him, waiting for something to break, anger, regret, defeat. But it didn't come. Not the way she expected. He exhaled slowly, then turned, looked at her, really looked. She was covered in soot, dress torn, hands scraped raw, small, exhausted, still standing, still there. Something shifted between them, not new, earned. He stepped closer, sat down beside her against the barn wall. Close, but not touching. Not yet. We'll have to rebuild. Simple words, no promise, no grand declaration, but not I, we. Mei Lin followed his gaze, out across the basin, the same horizon she had once feared, endless, empty. Now different. Still harsh, still uncertain, but no longer foreign. A place you could choose. She let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding, then a small nod. Tired, quiet, certain. The wind returned, soft this time, moving through ash, through grass, through what remained. A house can burn, land can be taken, proof can be lost, but something else had already been built. Not from wood, not from law, from choice, from survival, from standing when leaving would have been easier. And that was something no fire could take. The sun rose higher, and for the first time since she stepped off that train, Mei Lin didn't feel like something that had been left behind. She felt like something that had stayed.